Thank you so much for joining me today on Everyday Lutheran. In today's Bible study, we continue our journey through Genesis. In today's Bible study, our focus then is on Noah and the flood. Genesis 6 through 9. Now, spoiler alert, this Bible study will contain stories that you know, but lessons that were not always taught to you. So please continue at your own growth and your own understanding. The very first thing I want to draw your attention to is the years. Look at the years that we often look at. Look at the years that often describe a person's life. Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah. Now when you look at those years, when you look at that life, many of us say, well, how is that possible? How is it that they lived for so long? Is this the way God intended it? Is this the way we were supposed to be at the very beginning, where we lived long lives so that we were able to pass on from generation to generation the teachings, the understanding, and to truly take care of this world around us? Something that we often need to understand, first of all, is that we need to look at the calendar that they used. In our own modern society, we have a solar calendar with 12 months in the year, and we are able to then understand our time and our own year based on that solar calendar. When we go back to these years that we're talking about, we're not talking about a solar calendar. We're talking about a lunar calendar. One that is based on the moon. One that goes from new moon to new moon. So when we're talking about years, when we're talking about calendar years, we also need to identify that we're talking about two separate kinds of calendars. So it's not the same measurement. It's not the same time frame. So when we look at these years, we need to understand that we're talking about two completely different measures of time. What does that look like? Scholars have debated this. What truly are we talking about? Are we talking from new moon to new moon, that's a year? Other scholars will say no, we're talking about a few more months that are comprised as a year, and so really it's every season is a year. Others will debate it where it is more of 13 months make up a year. Each and every one of the scholars debates. Each and every one of them have support in their own argument, in their own defense of who's right. I want to highlight for you today this understanding so that you are able to truly understand all of this when we're talking about this in Genesis. Let's go further. In our last Bible study, we were talking about Eden. What did Adam and Eve and even their own children do afterwards? In Genesis 6, 3 through 4, my spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh, their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went into the daughters of humans who were born children to them. These were the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. The Nephilim are often a group of people that aren't really talked about a lot. There's not really a whole lot known about them. However, in the scriptures we bear witness to the sons of God going down to earth and lying with the daughters of humankind. And their children are the Nephilim, a half-breed from heaven and earth coming together. Oftentimes the Nephilim are described as large giants with great strength and power, and they are able to do wonderful things. This is often where we hear of the great warriors of old. Throughout the scriptures we bear witness to them. With David and Goliath, Goliath is often attributed to being a descendant of the Nephilim. Still strong in stature, large in power, yet the bloodline was thinning. Fewer and fewer were around. The Nephilim then is a topic that we don't often talk about, and yet very little is known. What did they look like? Where did they live? How was this a part of it all? As we go on in this story, the Lord saw the wickedness of humankind was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of their hearts was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had ever made humankind, and it grieved him to his heart. Think about that for a moment. The wickedness of humankind. That God had created us, sustained us, and yet when he looked down upon us, he no longer saw the good. Instead, he was grieved. Grieved and saddened that he had created us. Filled with sorrow that we were even in existence. So the Lord said, I will blot them out from the earth, and human beings that I have created, people together with animals and creeping things, the birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the sight of the Lord. In the midst of this despair, in the midst of this grief, God looks down and sees one man stand out above it all. And he sees favor in him. This man, God sees standing out above all the others, and for some reason, for some purpose. So why Noah? Noah was a righteous man, while the rest of the earth was corrupt. Okay? Noah was righteous. He had the ability to still honor the old ways, where he was still searching for God in the world, still taking care of the world around him, the animals, the plants. He was blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. This is what it meant. Noah walked with God, honoring the old ways, knowing the exact reason and purpose why human beings were created, and still wanting that relationship with God to understand his calling and to know his purpose and to truly live that out. To see the evil in the world and not go towards it. To see the good in the world and to go towards it and to share it with others. Noah was then asked to build an ark. The ark was made out of gopher wood, a hardwood, kind of like in our own modern times, cypress. And it was sealed with pitch. To give you an idea of the size of this, it was 75 feet wide, 450 feet long, and 45 feet tall. To give you some idea of a reference, the Titanic was 883 feet long, twice the size. Now on the ark, it was Noah and his wife, his son Shem and his wife, Ham and his wife, and Japeth and his wife. These were the people that built and constructed the ark. Now, as he was building the ark, Noah received a command from God. The first one, God commanded Noah in Genesis 6:19, gather animals, male and female. Gather food for the animals. On the ark would be the animals, a male and its mate, so that they would be able to repopulate the world. But also, God called Noah to prepare and to gather food to sustain and to truly take care of those animals while he was on the ark. As he built the ark, a new commandment came. God's second command in Genesis 7:2. Take with you 7 pairs of clean animals, a male and mate, and 7 pairs of unclean animals, a male and mate. Think about this for a moment. God takes 7 pairs. 7 times 2 is 14. And 7 times 2, another 14. So we have 28 of every kind of animals. 28 mice, 28 rabbits, 28 giraffes, 28 elephants, 28 rhinos, 28 lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my, think of the manure. All of these animals, though, are placed on the ark, and food to take care of those animals as well. These commands give us a greater understanding not only of the calling, but also of the faith that Noah had, and God's ability to provide for Noah during this time. Well, oftentimes we talk about that they were on the boat, and for 40 days and 40 nights it rained. Well, God did cause it to rain for 40 days and 40 nights. But in Genesis 8:3, we hear, at the end of 150 days, the waters abated. So for 40 days and 40 nights it rained. But for 150 days, then the waters stopped. They lessened, they reduced, and began to be removed. In Genesis 8:4 and 5, we hear, and on the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the Mount of Ararat. The waters continued to abate until the 10th month, In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains appeared. Okay, so now we have 40 days and 40 nights it rained. After 150 days on the ark, the waters began to recede. On the 7th month, on the 17th day, the ark came to rest on the top of a mountain. And on the 10th month, on the first day, other mountains began to appear. Now they couldn't go to those different mountains. They couldn't actually leave all of this area, but they could see them in the distance. And so there was still a lot of water around them. And so for 10 months, Noah and the animals were together as they are still on the boat. We then hear in Genesis 8:6, where God has Noah send out the birds. And it's not until the story of the dove bringing back an olive branch that they know the waters have receded and the plants and new growth is happening, that they are able to get off of the ark and go out into the world. Here in Genesis 8:17, God tells the animals and to Noah and the families, be fruitful and multiply. After the boat, in Genesis 8:20, Noah built an altar to the Lord and took every clean animal and every clean bird and offered a burnt offering on the altar. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing odor, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of humankind. For the inclination of the human heart is evil from youth, nor will I ever again destroy the living creature as I have done. I want you to stop and think about this for a moment. After the boat, one of the very first things Noah does is build an altar and offer a burnt offering, sacrificing a clean animal, every single one of them, and a clean bird, every single one of them. It's here that in the story we bear witness to then not only could there be a male and its mate, because the very first thing that Noah does is offer a sacrifice of one of the animals. Well, if Noah did do that, and there was only a male and its mate, you would only be left with one. And the repopulation, the be fruitful and multiply, would not be able to happen. After the boat, in Genesis 9:12, we hear of God's covenant, of putting his bow in the sky, a rainbow, and giving us the promise that he would never do that again. So every time it rains, every time when we look up and we see the sun come back out, we see that rainbow, we see God's bow in the sky, and we are reminded of the promise that God would not destroy us through water again. In Genesis 9:18 through 28, Noah plants a vineyard and gets drunk. After all of this turmoil, after all of this stress, after all of this burden was placed on him, he needed a way to unload all of these burdens and a way to release all of that tension. And so he had that vineyard and got drunk. It was here, in his drunken state, that one of his sons saw him naked. And for this, he cursed him. He cursed Ham, the father of Canaan, and the other two sons, Shem and Japeth, he blessed. Shem, the oldest, was blessed even more, and Japeth was allowed to live among Shem. Noah lived for 950 years until he died. I invite you to please join us next time as we continue our Bible study in Genesis, as we look at the Tower of Babel. I hope that you enjoyed this Bible study. If you did, I invite you to please subscribe to the channel. It's free, and you will be notified every time I upload a new video. Also, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and to share this video with others.